Welcome to Evolution, the channel about electric cars from a different perspective. My name is Andre Lawrence, and even though I love my Kia EV6, there are some things that I hate. If you want to find out what they are, stick around, I'll show you in a few seconds. I just want to preface this video with a little note that even though I'm listing some of the things that I hate about my car, that doesn't mean that I hate my car. And that's actually very far from the case. The Kia EV6, this is a 2022 GT-Line top trim here in Canada, the Pack 2, has been the best car I've ever owned in 35 years of car ownership, and I've had quite a few cars. And that's a pretty big statement for me because I've had a lot of interesting cars. So watching these things that I hate, take them with a little grain of salt. I don't hate the car, I love it, it's awesome. The first thing on my list of the things that I hate about my EV6 has to do with the regen. Now, one of the advantages of the e-gmp platform is the fact that these little flappy paddles behind the steering wheel allow you to adjust the regen settings from 0 to 3 and then to I-pedal on the fly as long as you're not touching the brake pedal. Now, this is a major advantage that Kia has and Hyundai have over the competition. But for some reason, Kia thought and Hyundai thought that it was a great idea that when you got to the 4th level of regen using this little paddle, that the car would go ding every single time you put it on or off. Now, if you're somebody like me who enjoys adjusting the regen settings on the fly based on the situation, because I don't like the automatic setting and how it works, this thing dings every single time I turn I-pedal on and I-pedal off, and annoys my wife. While we're on the subject of the I-pedal, there's something that makes me wonder, why, oh why, Kia, would you make the I-pedal feature not persistent when you power the car off and then power it back on? Now, if you watch the video of the Niro EV Things I Hate, and I'll have a link for that up here on the screen for you to see, you'll know that the auto hold feature wasn't persistent, and it's something that I really didn't like. And then when they made the Kia EV6, they fixed it, and the auto hold is persistent. But then, when you turn on the I-pedal, and then you power off the car and power it back on, it doesn't come back on. Why? One of the chart-topping things I hated about my Kia Niro EV in that previous video I made a few years ago was the fact that Kia thought it was a good idea to put glossy black plastic on the inside of the car, which blinds you. Now, not only did Kia add glossy black plastic to the inside of the Kia EV6, they also decided it was a fantastic idea to put glossy black plastic all over the outside of the car. Now, you're not going to be blinded by the plastic that's outside of your car when you're driving, but it looks like garbage, really, after a couple of years of driving. Now, in the case of the EV6's rear, you've got glossy black plastic on the bottom part of the bumper, you've got gloss black plastic here, you've got it on the top. Now, this is a great example of what it looks like when it's new. This is beautiful, and when I got my car, I thought, wow, that looks great, even though I'm not a fan of gloss black plastic. But then let's walk a little bit more towards the front of the car, and I'll show you what I mean about the problem. Now, you've got some on the C-pillar, you've got some all along the bottom of the vehicle, and that stuff is starting to look pretty bad. And then you get it where you put your hands and use on a daily basis. So when I open my door and close my door, my hand's here, and I've already got a really nice scratch on this B-pillar. But then we move forward to the biggest problem. Now, you've got the side view mirrors. Both of them are nice, shiny black plastic when they're new, but now they kind of look like trash because they're faded and sandblasted by all the debris that's on the road after a couple of years of driving. I live in the province of Quebec, which means that we have salt and gravel on the roads, and this thing gets pelted. So it's starting to look pretty bad, but the best is in the front. We'll get that to that in a second. The A-pillar is not so bad, which is kind of surprising. Your hands don't go there. Gravel doesn't seem to be hitting it too much, so it's not terrible, but then we get to the front. Now, the front of my EV6 is beautiful, or was beautiful. Now, this shiny black trim all along the bottom, all along the front, and these inserts here, as well as up here and on the front, have been blasted by rocks and sand for 2.5 years and 87,000 kilometers, and that bottom has divots that you can feel when you run your hand on it. I mean, it just really looks like garbage. I don't understand why any manufacturer, regardless of whether it's Kia or Mercedes or I don't care who it is, choosing shiny black plastic for the outside of your vehicle is a very bad idea, to not say stupid. One of the things that bothers me with the EV6, and I've been told that other EV6 owners don't have this issue, but some others do, the auto wipers. Now, there was a Tesla scandal-ish thing that happened where the auto wipers weren't very efficient depending on the different conditions they were in and didn't necessarily work as they were supposed to. Well, guess what? My EV6's auto wipers are kind of not so automatic. Now, sometimes when I'm driving and there's a little bit of a sprinkling of rain, the wipers will start going and it's a variable intermittent. But then for some unknown reason, even though the rain is exactly the same little sprinkle, they decide to go into hyperballistic mode and wipe like an insane person on cocaine. I have no idea why they just go nuts. And then it'll stop at a light and it'll start to have a huge downpour and they'll just stop wiping. So auto wipers in my EV6, they suck. One of the things that I found surprising with my Kia EV6, which is the GT-Line Pack 2 in the top trim here in Canada, was the fact that it's missing something that my e-niro EV had. Now, my e-niro EV was $10,000 cheaper, but it had a charge port light. This, as I just said, doesn't, and I don't understand. Now, you've got these charge level indicators that show you how much charge the car has, and they are a nice bright white LED light. What that means is that when you go to plug in the charge pistol at night and it's dark, you're pretty much blinded, or at least your eye focuses on those white lights and everything else is completely black. So you take the charge pistol, you go to here, and the only way to get a visual is to put your hand and reflect the light to stick it in. Now that, to me, is just something that makes absolutely no sense, and it's just a really weird, why would Kia not put a charge port light? When it comes to a $65,000 electric vehicle, the devil is in the details. Now, what does a Kia Rio 5 that's worth $20,000 have that a $65,000 EV6 not have? Well, that's wireless Android Auto and CarPlay. You heard that right. Every time I get in my car and I want to use Android Auto, I have to take this wire, which is all the way down there, plug it in my cell phone, and then find a convenient place to put it. Convenient has a little asterisk beside it because that's not very convenient. That's not very convenient, and that's sort of convenient, but I just don't understand why Kia wouldn't have included wireless Android Auto and CarPlay in my car, and not only that, it seems that my 2022 won't be getting an update. Did you happen to watch the review video that I made of the Kia EV9 that came out in early August? Well, there was something in that video that that car has that this one doesn't. Now, it is related to Android Auto and CarPlay. It has wireless, this one doesn't. But even if I plug in my cell phone and get my Android Auto on there, one of the things that it doesn't have is the directions from my navigation of Google Maps in my heads-up display. Yep, the Kia EV9 has the heads-up display that shows you your Google Maps, or I'm guessing CarPlay directions in the heads-up display, but my Kia EV6 doesn't, and that's another one that I just don't understand. Imagine you've been driving your shiny new electric car around for a year and a half, and you go to the grocery store to pick up some groceries, get back in your car, press that power button, and then the dash lights up and flashes and beeps at you telling you there's a problem with the 12-volt battery. Well, that's not just a story that's made up. That actually happened to me both in my e-niro EV and in my EV6, and if you go into Facebook groups and forums for the Ioniq 5, I'm not alone. So this affects multiple electric vehicles with the e-gmp platform. Not everybody has the problem, but there are a lot of people that do. Now, the 12-volt battery can't be maintained by an alternator because, well, it's not a gas car, it doesn't have an alternator. An electric car has battery maintenance done by a software that takes power from the high voltage battery and puts it into the 12-volt battery when it's at a lower level. Now, you would think that Kia's programming would say, hey, are you happy, yes or no, 12-volt battery, do you need power maybe every hour, every 2 hours? But nope. The EV6 basically eventually says, I'm not going to check that 12-volt battery. Now, I've got a graph that shows this, and I'll put that up on the screen because I've got a little tool that I put on my 12-volt to maintain this when I had my e-niro EV, and I've ported it into my EV6 because I had to change the 12-volt battery in my EV6 twice within 18 months of ownership of this car. That's right, I had an original Kia 12-volt battery, and then I had another original Kia 12-volt battery that went bad after only 18 months of ownership. So what did I do? I decided to say, no thanks, I don't want that cheap Kia 12-volt battery back in my car, and I bought the same kind of AGM 12-volt battery technology. That's a 12-volt battery that allows for a deep discharge because this car doesn't maintain the battery all the time, and I put it into this one. Where is the 12-volt battery? Well, it's right here. Under the hood, near the frunk, you've got this little 12-volt battery, and this happens to be the Bolt 47 AGM battery from Battery Experts. Now, no, I'm not sponsored. I didn't get this for free. Just like with my Niro EV, I spent my own money. I paid out of pocket, and I actually replaced this 12-volt battery in the parking lot of the shop. I just pulled it out, brought the core in, got the new one, dumped it in, hooked up my terminals, and away I went. Now, what do you do when you've got that problem with your car that doesn't start? Well, what I suggest is if you own an electric car, not only is it convenient for that case of where your car runs out of power, but if you buy a little lithium-ion booster pack, you can not only boost your car in the event that you have a problem with the 12-volt battery, if it happens to you, because it doesn't happen to everybody, but you can also boost somebody else's car with this. I actually boosted a Ford Econoline F350 van, that's right, a huge van with a giant diesel engine with this tiny little pack. So very convenient to have in your frunk if you have an electric car with a 12-volt battery that's original, that'll probably end up dying and giving you a bit of a headache. It's the summer of 2022, July, nice hot sunny day, and I'm driving on the highway with my wife and having a great time, listening to the radio and just driving to have some fun. And then my wife decides that she doesn't want to listen to what we're listening to right now, so she reaches over to touch the multifunction panel right below the vents to change the channel. And a couple of minutes later, I start to wonder why it's so hot and why I feel so uncomfortable. And then about 30 seconds later, my steering wheel is boiling hot. Well, guess what? That's because you don't really have to touch these buttons. You can sort of just brush over them and they'll turn on. So my wife, when she pressed the seek button, her wrist brushed against the heated seat and the heated steering wheel. And on a 30-degree July day, I was melting. So why would Kia put these touch-sensitive buttons instead of hardware buttons is a mystery to me. And even worse than that, if you get the lower trim, you get physical buttons that actually have lines between them, making them easier to find if you're driving without having to look down. So glossy black touch buttons on the EV6 top trim, not a great idea. Nothing in life is perfect, and that includes the Kia EV6. But like I said earlier in this video, that doesn't mean that I don't like my car and that I regret buying it. That's far from the truth. I love my EV6 and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Maybe a 2025 EV6 GT, but that's for next year. Now, with that being said, the EV6 isn't perfect like most cars, or actually every car. There isn't one car on the planet that doesn't have something that people don't like, and that's why when you go into forums and Facebook groups and you read about these cars, it's all about complaints. That doesn't mean that the cars are garbage, that just means that people are finding things that are anomalous with their cars. So, no big deal for me, these are things that bother me, but it wouldn't have prevented me from buying this car if it's something that I had known before I had bought it in 2022. Your enjoyment of these videos is something that's super important to David and myself, but something that's really important for us, and this is only in your benefit, is to have the number of subscribers that gains the attentions of vehicle manufacturers like Cadillac and GM and Ford and Rivian and Polestar and you name it, any other manufacturer of electric vehicles, because that means that they will lend us those cars and trucks. We can find out all the little details from a different perspective and then answer your questions as a viewer. So if you could please click on that subscribe button and that thumbs up button and the notification bell, because I have zero posting schedule, I would really appreciate it. We've got a personal goal of 20,000 subscribers. We've busted 15,000. Thanks to everybody who's already subscribed. It's fantastic. Now, with that being said, I've got some social media links, and I'll have some links down in the description below and things for you to see. And I've got some hoodies and t-shirts on my website that you can look into if you're interested in supporting this channel. If you already bought one, thank you very much. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. We really appreciate it. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Come on, you can do it. Come on. There you go, good girl. Why, Kia? Why, oh why, would you not make the iPedal feature persistent when you put the button on? Now, if you watch the Things I Hate video of the Niro EV, I'll have a link up here. that my e-niro EV had, and my e-niro EV was $10,000 cheaper. And that's something as basic as a bus backing up and beeping and effing up this entire recording, so now we have to start all over. Yay! Imagine you've been driving your electric car around for a year and a half, and then you go to the grocery store, pick up your groceries, get back into your car, and have a car make a truckload of noise on the gravel and a crappy broken muffler and have to start all over. Wait. Imagine you've been driving, that 12-volt battery often enough, and that is a really loud piece of garbage gas-powered truck that ruined this take. So, let's start over. Yay! Subscription level. Now subscribers, I've got manufacturer's attention for other cars that I want to